Hello and welcome to Dead by Daylight. My name is the Kalashnikov and I'd like to thank you for stopping by. The video you're about to watch is a list of the top 5 worst killer perks in the game. The criteria that was used to judge these perks was based purely on how effective they are at helping the killer achieve their core objectives, which is to stop gens from being popped, hunting down survivors, and eventually sacrificing them to the entity. Please note that this list has also taken into consideration the 3 new killer perks that will soon be made available when the Spirit Killer is officially released. With that out of the way, let's jump right in. Starting off this list is Overwhelming Presence, which is a teachable perk belonging to the Doctor. This perk increases the rate at which survivors consume their items whenever they use those items within the terror radius of the killer. Now this sounds rather useful, but unfortunately there is a very easy counter to this perk. All the survivors have to do is not use their items until they are outside the killer's terror radius, and that's pretty much it. Now to be fair, Overwhelming Presence can be a viable perk when combined with the Distressing perk, but this means having to use another perk just to make it viable, which simply isn't good enough. Finally, there is a much superior perk for affecting the items of survivors, and that perk would be Franklin's Demise, which is a teachable perk belonging to Leatherface, aka the Cannibal. Coming in at number 4 is Territorial Imperative, which is a teachable perk belonging to the Huntress. This perk notifies the killer when a survivor enters the basement as long as the killer is at least 32 meters away from it. Now this perk is most useful when the killer has successfully hooked a survivor in the basement and can be used to notify the killer when another survivor runs into the basement for the save. It's certainly a decent perk for a basement build, but beyond that, it really isn't that useful. Plus, the perk relies heavily on the killer hooking a survivor in the basement, which doesn't happen often enough for this perk to be considered viable, and that's why it's on this list. The number 3 perk on this list is Insidious, and yes, I know there are quite a number of players who will be upset about this perk being on the list. Insidious is a perk that is actually quite popular with killers who play a very certain way, which is basically to camp a hooked survivor or a hotspot on a map. The perk grants the killer a 0 terror radius indefinitely as long as the killer stands still on one single spot, and this is exactly why I really do not like this perk. Sure, it's a fantastic perk for cursing, jump scares, and catching survivors totally by surprise, but there is only so many times you can surprise survivors using this trick. The perk relies heavily on a killer who has the ability to instantly down a survivor, and this is precisely why you will see this perk most often used by Leatherface killers. But it still doesn't guarantee the killer will be able to down the survivor. Against a Survive with Friends group, this perk becomes even less viable, as all it takes is for one survivor to know the killer is running Insidious, and the element of surprise becomes completely lost. Perhaps the biggest issue I have with this perk is the fact that you, as the killer, has to stand in one spot and not move at all. This means you get 0 blood points for the entire duration the perk is active, and that's just god-awful. The second perk on our list is Surveillance. This is a teachable perk belonging to the pig, but in all honesty, this is a perk no killer wants to learn. The perk allows the killer to see the aura of the last 3 requesting generators for a measly 16 seconds. Basically, the way it works is, the killer does damage to a generator and the aura of the gen turns white. Now, if a survivor sneaks back within 16 seconds from the time the killer did the damage and begins working on the gen, the aura turns back to the original color, notifying the killer that indeed the survivor has returned to continue work on the generator. The biggest failure of this perk is the fact that it only lasts for 16 seconds, which is just not good enough, coupled with the fact that Overcharge and Pop Goes the Weasel are 2 massively superior anti-gen perks. Yes, the number 1 perk on our list is Monstrous Shrine. This monstrosity of a perk is the absolute worst perk you can ever use as a killer, and it's a perk so bad that I do not even have any footage to show you how it works. The perk just guarantees that any survivor you hook in the basement dies faster than normal, and also makes it more difficult for survivors to Kobe off of the hooks. Alright, so first of all, the killer has to hook a survivor in the basement for this perk to be active, but getting a survivor in the basement just doesn't happen often enough to warrant using this perk. Second, survivors already have an incredibly small 4% chance of coming off of the hooks. Making this already difficult task even more difficult is just plain unnecessary. The only time this perk can serve any useful purpose is if the killer is going for a basement build, but such a build doesn't even guarantee this perk will make the list. For a proper basement build, the killer would be better off with Agitation and Iron Grasp to get the survivor into the basement, Territorial Imperative to notify the killer of any survivor going into the basement for the save, and then maybe Hex Ruin or Noed. Monster Shrine, a perk designed specifically for the hooks in the basement, will not even be good enough to make the list of perks for a basement build. That just about sums up how terrible this perk really is. So there you have it, my top 5 worst killer perks. What did you think of this list? Do you agree or disagree? Jump into the comment section below and share your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video, and if you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.